So what you've now done is you've found a way to make a very sweet alternative. What that's doing is it's continually reinforcing to your brain that sweet foods are okay. So you never get rid of that craving, and every time you walk past that bakery, you're going to crave that cinnamon swirl, and then you're going to go and look for a way to get it. But one day you might be passing the bakery and you're a bit hungry, and because you've still got the craving for the sweet food, you give in and you find yourself wolfing down one or two of the full fat, full sugar variety, and before you know it, you've fallen off the keto wagon.
Hi and welcome back to The Peaks Life. You're with Mike Warren and Lynn Fernie, and this is where we give you little bite-sized chunks of wellness wisdom to power you through your day. Now Lynn, what are we talking about today?
So really exciting, really interesting and super important episode today, because we're talking about artificial sweeteners.
Ah, the great trap.
The great trap. Don't give the game away.
No. It's about the great trap.
But this is a really important category.
It is, for a lot of people.
It's so important for a lot of people, and it's an area that people don't really understand, and they don't understand why artificial sweeteners, especially those that are low calorie and low carb, could actually be doing them more harm than good, and could be derailing their efforts if they're on keto, especially for weight loss or health issues.
Absolutely, so it's super important.
Super important, so stay tuned, stick with us guys, because we've got a lot of information to run through today, but I promise you this is really valuable, and if you stick with us till the end, there's a few little tips and tricks at the end that I think will really help your keto journey.
Absolutely, because it's a frustration for a lot of people who really want to do the right thing by keto, and they, unfortunately, and we'll talk about it later, but they've been sold a whole bunch of misinformation around artificial sweeteners and what is appropriate for the keto diet, what should be in and should be out, just because they're falling within their macros and they're getting the right balance of carbohydrates and proteins and fats. Those artificial sweeteners can cause a huge amount of impact to the success they deserve.
Then that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, you know, the macros are one part of it, but the macros are not everything.
True.
They're not the full picture. And I think the reason that this becomes a real issue for people is that they come into the keto way of eating, and their old style of eating or their old habits or, you know, their old diet has been very much a Western diet. So it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. Most of us have come from a background of having lots and lots of carbohydrates, lots of sweetened foods.
Absolutely.
So, you know, typically a typical meal, if you go out for a meal, you have a starter, a main course, and you have a dessert. Your snack, and a lot of the snack bars are sweetened. You know, we get those oat bars, the granola bars, we get all sorts of things that are meant to be healthy, but they're based on dates. So we're very used to having sweet food.
Yes.
And so people come into the keto life and they look to have the same style of eating.
Yes.
They look for exactly the same pattern, the same types of foods, and they really look for the alternatives in keto. And you know, they find themselves perhaps eating sweetened foods. Some might be naturally sweetened, some might be artificially sweetened, and they really don't know which are good and which are bad. And if you're one of these people, we really understand what it's like, because if I go onto social media right now and I have a look at Instagram or I look at Facebook, every second recipe is a sweet treat of some kind, whether it's a sweetened fat bomb, whether it's a cheesecake, whether it's an alternative type of cake or dessert. And that's because we're all coming from that craving of, well, I used to eat like this, I used to love my desserts, I can't give up my chocolate, I can't give up my, you know, my little treats. And so we're looking for them, and so there's lots of recipes out there for here's how you can make your favorite recipe keto friendly. So,
and it's that whole dilemma of trying to move forward with keto and keto lifestyle, but also keeping one foot in the old world where we're still sort of addicted to sugars and addicted to the sweet treats, and it's that real balance. The great news is when you fully transition to keto and when you do keto for a longer period of time, those cravings and those desires for the sweetness do go. But it's that transition period that's the real tough bit for a lot of people.
It really is, and so, you know, we do understand, because there's a big trap here. So
there is.
This
the
is
trap.
This is the trap.
We found the trap.
It's the trap, the great trap.
The great trap.
And the great trap's got.
We shall call this episode The Great Trap.
The Great Trap.
And don't forget, if you're listening in or tuning in, you can grab this on podcast, and you can also grab it on YouTube as well, because some people like to see my smiling face, and my assistant Lynn also is in the picture as well.
Absolutely. And if you are on YouTube, guys, or the podcast, don't forget, subscribe, like the episode, and leave us some comments.
Absolutely.
Moving swiftly on, so back to the Great
Trap.
There's 5 issues, right?
There is 5 issues of the trap, and these are important because it's really time to take a step back and if you are in keto and you've been doing keto for a while or you're transitioning, it's now time to take a step back and say, am I doing this the right way? Am I being subjected to these 5 traps that a lot of people slip into when they transition to keto? And it's not your fault. These are traps that have been set up because large food companies have encouraged people to continually look for the sweetness but go onto the keto diet. So the traps are there, but let's walk through them and see where people make mistakes.
Exactly. And these really are the mistakes that will hold you back.
Absolutely.
They'll prevent you losing weight, they'll stall your progress. They may or may not stop you getting into ketosis, but for sure your health won't improve, your diabetes won't improve, your metabolic conditions won't improve if you're in one of these traps. So I guess the first one, Mike.
They like to, I guess, keep the ties to the old way. So what we're talking about there is, rather than letting go and saying, when you're into ketosis, when you're fully into the keto lifestyle, your body no longer requires that sweet. You're still allowing yourself to be tied to the old way and still craving the, if I had it, we talked about the donut,
we did, but
cinnamon
before
donut
we
thing.
get to that one, let's just think about the habit side of it first.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people, it's just the habit. It is the
cinnamon
habit.
scroll is where I was going.
Cinnamon swirl is the one you're looking
in some
for.
countries, if you're tuning
Issue
into
3.
cinnamon scroll.
So if you're used to eating these sweet foods, the desserts, you're used to cakes, you do like your treats, you like your cookies, you might have a cookie with your cup of tea. However it is, it's a habit. And so by looking for replacements, it keeps you in your old habits. And of course, your old habits have led to where you are today. So they've led to your health issues, they've led to you being overweight, perhaps not having the energy you should. So do you really want those bad habits holding you back? So the first one is really around your habits are keeping you tied to your old life. Keto is allowing you to move on from your old life. Say goodbye to it. Goodbye, old life. Now it's time to move on. Now it's time to make new habits, better habits, healthier habits. So don't fall into that trap of doing it because you've always done it. This is a great time to clean out the cupboard.
Look forward.
Clean out your life.
Don't look back.
And exactly right. Move forward, look forward, and just keep on the progress, keep on the journey that is keto because it's better for you.
And the second one's about snacking, good, bad or ugly.
Well, we would say snacking's not a great thing because there's a few issues with snacking. First of all, you're consuming a lot of calories. Second of all, it keeps you eating, so your digestion's never getting a break. And we know that people eat or drink something 20 times a day in America. So if you're in the US, guys, you may not be eating 20 times a day, but you might be drinking.
Could have one of those lattes or a soda or a smoothie or a juice. They're all classed as meals, they're just liquid meals, and every couple of hours you're probably having something that keeps that metabolic rate up, keeps the digestive system up, keeps your body working hard to process all that food.
And that's the old style of thinking. The old style of thinking was the metabolic rate stays high if you eat. What we know is that doesn't apply anymore. The metabolic rate doesn't stay high when you eat, you just pack on the fat. So those calories that you're consuming, and there are many of them in a typical Starbucks latte, has got a lot of calories. So if you're having those and you're having 3 or 4 a day, you're going to be packing in the calories, packing on the fat. So again, it just promotes that idea of snacking, having lots and lots of little meals during the day that you actually don't need, because on keto, you don't get hungry. The fat keeps you nicely full, keeps your energy levels balanced, and you actually, if you allow your body to see how it feels, you won't feel the pangs of hunger that you used to. And there is one last issue with snacking. A lot of the snacks are actually sweetened. So we tend to, if you think about what can come in a package that you can buy from the supermarket, it's got all sorts of artificial ingredients to keep it on the shelf for 9 months. And a lot of those ingredients are sweetened. So that, again, you're having sweet foods and it just keeps you still tied to that old way of the sweetened type of foods and snacks.
And again, this is one of our problems, one of our challenges with the food companies and the food industry around keto. Because as we've spoken about before, they see a huge market in keto, they see that people are moving to keto and therefore they're losing some of their snack trade from the traditional diet. And they've eyed up keto and said there is $1 billion industry there, especially in the snack area. And they've created these amazing keto foods that are sold to us as keto friendly. And yes, they may fit within the macros, but they have all these artificial sweeteners which which continually allow us to get the sweet treats that we're used to in the old way of eating and don't allow us to become fully into the keto lifestyle. Very frustrating.
Very frustrating. Perfect segue into that third issue, because the third issue is the fact that, as you've just said, you don't lose your craving for sweet food. So one of the real benefits of the keto way of eating, as I'm sure you've heard, is you no longer crave food. You don't crave the sweet food, you don't crave the carbohydrates, you're not craving food generally all the time. The fat in the diet really fills you up nicely and you feel good from it, you feel good from your meals. But we know that in the old world, in that carb-based diet, you're constantly looking for sweet foods.
Absolutely.
So in the keto way of eating, we lose all of those cravings. If you're eating artificial sweeteners or you're having foods and drinks that are artificially sweetened,
Even if you're on keto.
you won't lose your cravings.
So you're tying yourself again to those sweet treats, the cinnamon scrolls.
Now here's your cinnamon, so let me give the cinnamon swirl examples.
Cinnamon scroll. I'm going to call it a
Swirl,
scroll.
they're
For some
swirls.
parts of the universe listening in, it's a scroll. And for other
Most
people
parts,
from some of the other
it's a
dodgier
swirl.
countries, it's a swirl.
So where we've got, so let's just say that in my old way of eating, I really enjoyed cinnamon swirls, and they were just my favourite. And my absolute treat was I would be heading on my way home, and I'd go past the bakery. You can smell them. You smell that beautiful, freshly baked smell.
And they do smell good.
They smell good. Or maybe in the
love it.
supermarket you see them, and maybe just once a week you allow yourself that treat, and you say, today I'm going to have a really nice cinnamon swirl. You know what they're like, that real chewy, delicious dough, and they've got the raisins in them, and then the frosting or the icing on top. They just melt in your mouth. And so that might be your treat in the week. They're incredibly sweet. I mean, super sweet.
Absolutely.
But it's been your treat for a long time. And so, you come into the keto way of eating and, oh my goodness, now I can't have cinnamon swirls. So you look for the alternative. You look for the keto-friendly cinnamon swirl. You go out and you research on the internet, and lo and behold, you find a recipe for cinnamon swirls.
You can find everything out there.
Because you can get everything as a keto-friendly alternative. And here it is. It's made from keto-friendly foods and keto-friendly sweeteners. So what you've now done is you've found a way to make a very sweet alternative. What that's doing is it's continually reinforcing to your brain that sweet foods are okay. So you never get rid of that craving, and every time you walk past that bakery, you're going to crave that cinnamon swirl, and then you're going to go and look for a way to get it. But one day you might be passing the bakery and you're a bit hungry, and because you've still got the craving for the sweet food, you give in and you find yourself wolfing down one or two of the full fat, full sugar variety, and before you know it, you've fallen off the keto wagon. So it's really important to think about that and really consider whether you want to lose your food cravings and your sweet food cravings, because if you do, then it's actually really important to cut more of these sweetened foods out so that you can kill the cravings, because the cravings will be killed with all the beautiful fats in your diet.
So remembering that if you were to make or find a keto-friendly cinnamon scroll, you're still in the keto diet. You're still falling within your macros, but essentially you're not doing the best thing by your body to get rid of those long-term sweet cravings. And you're not getting the full benefits of keto because you're still hanging on to that desire for something sweet, and your taste won't change.
That's right. And if you're somebody who has sweet cravings or carb cravings, if you're a binge eater or you're addicted to sugar, you know what this is like. You are tied to those foods. It's like food prison. It's hell. You don't want that. You don't deserve that. You deserve to be free of all those cravings, and keto really is the key to unlock the door to a new way of life and to lose those cravings, to get rid of them once and for all. But as we said, if you keep having the sweetened foods, you're not going to be able to lose them. And part of that, as you said, the issue number 4 is that you will stop your palate and your tastes changing. So when you go on the keto journey, what you find is after a period of time, you no longer enjoy the taste of carbohydrate-rich food, and you don't enjoy sweetened foods. All of a sudden, they become really difficult to eat. They're actually, they might make you feel nauseous, or they're just too sweet. And you've had that experience,
Sandra.
Mike.
Sandra is this lovely lady who's the grandma of one of my kids in the kids' family, and I've been going to the birthday party for this particular young fella for about 6 or 7 years, and Sandra, the grandma, always makes these beautiful homemade profiteroles. Makes her own pastry, puts her own cream together, makes these beautiful chocolate-filled profiteroles, and I think you all know what they are. And for many years, I used to go to this one particular birthday party primarily to have Sandra's profiteroles, because she used to serve them, and they were the actual showstopper of the birthday party. When I transitioned to keto, still went to the party to do the right thing. The plate came around with these beautiful profiteroles, and I thought, what I'm going to do is just have a taste, just to see if my tastes have changed. I wasn't intending to eat the profiterole, because I'm obviously not going to eat that, but I wanted to try it. Had a bite, and it just tasted totally different. The sweet was too intense, it was overpowering. Didn't even get through the first bite, I just bit into it, and it was an overwhelming intensity, because your tastes do change. And it makes you realise what you craved before, and for some of you who are right in the middle of the transition or the sweet cravings, you may not see it now, but when you've transitioned, when you spend a bit of time on keto, your taste will change, and those artificial sweeteners will hold you back from getting the benefits that you can get from keto.
It's exactly right. And this transition will happen a lot faster if you're not having artificial sweeteners, or you're not having sweet foods.
Yes.
So as you said, Mike, your taste buds will change. You no longer will enjoy those sweetened foods.
Yes.
And you'll be able to taste the beautiful, subtle flavours in all of your other foods. So it's really worth allowing your taste buds and your palate to change. It will take months, it's
Yes.
not a few days. It does happen over time, but you will at some point taste one of those foods, just as Mike did with the profiteroles, and then realise, wow,
Sorry, Sandra.
I no longer enjoy them.
And the last one is around the impact on the metabolics for the sweeteners. If you long-term use of these type of sweeteners is not good for your body.
Well, what we know, and we're going to go through all these
Yes.
sweeteners now, because I think it's really important to be well informed on what the different sweeteners are, what the benefits are, what the downsides are.
Yep.
But some of them, we don't know what the long-term health issues are. Others, we do know what the long-term health issues are, and we know that they can affect basically metabolic conditions. So they will potentially cause you metabolic issues in the long run. So we're talking there about eventually leading to weight gain again. So you'll start to put weight back on, potentially leading to issues like obesity, central obesity, potentially leading to issues like insulin resistance and all of the diseases that go with those conditions. So, if you are having a lot of sweetened, artificially sweetened foods, you may be all right now, you may be all right in a year's time, but in 5 or 10 years' time, you may actually be storing up some significant problems for yourself.
So I think the first thing is to understand the sweeteners, and then I guess make the right choices, because there is a place, and Lynn will talk to this a little bit later on, there is a place when you transition. Some of you listening in may need something sweet, and we do understand and we empathise with some people who have gone from the traditional way of eating where we're loaded with sugar and carbs, gone to keto, and it's easier for us to say, get rid of the sugars, get rid of the artificial sweeteners, but that's a big jump. For some people, they need a little bit of sweetness, but it's about understanding what is the best choice when it comes to sweetening your food if you need to, but still be healthy and still maintain all those good results you're achieving on the keto lifestyle.
That's exactly right. So inform yourself. So let us take you through all of the different type of sweeteners, and then make the choice for yourself. If you are going to have something sweet, which of these sweeteners is going to be the better one for you? Which is that right choice?
All right, let's go with the first one. Let's go with the Grand Pooh Bar of sweeteners.
That's it.
The top dog, sugar.
The top dog. So we're talking here about the stuff that comes from sugarcane. So
Yes.
sugarcane, sugar beet.
Yes.
And it is a natural product. However, what you buy in the supermarket, that white granulated powder, is basically highly refined. So there's its first issue. You know my take on things. If it's white, it's bad. So we're talking here about those white refined sugars. But we're also talking about some of the other sugars that are billed as quite natural products. So it might be maple syrup. It's a natural product, and especially if you're in Canada, everybody knows in Canada it's one of the national products.
It is, lovely.
Coconut sugar. So for many years, coconut sugar has been pushed forward as a healthy or natural alternative to sugar, because it's natural. It comes from coconuts, and all things coconut are good, right? So coconut sugar must be good. So you find that a lot in health food shops. This category also includes all of your other types of sugars. So the brown sugar, the demerara sugar, the icing sugar, they're still all sugar. They're still the same thing. And it also includes natural things like dates or date sugar. So here we're talking about a product which is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. So that's its chemical makeup. Essentially, it's 100% carbohydrates. So it doesn't matter what its makeup, it's 100% carbs, and that is really food of the devil when it comes to keto, because we know that we need to keep our carbohydrates very, very low.
Yep. So you're probably not going to have sugar in your diet if you're on keto.
Well, that's the first thing is, let's be really clear. So if you're just starting out on keto and you're figuring out what I can have and what I can't have, sugar doesn't have a place in the keto way of life, because when you have sugar, it does cause weight gain, especially in the quantities that we find it in our foods.
Absolutely.
It does cause your blood glucose to go up, and incredibly quickly. So if you're eating foods that have got sugar in them, make no mistake, you may have less than 20 grams or less than an ounce of sugar in your food, but it is going to spike your blood sugar real quick. So that's not something we want on the keto way of eating, and it will affect your insulin response. So even though the quantity might fit into your macros, it still doesn't have a place.
All
so
right.
lose the sugar.
Sugar's out. Sugar's completely gone.
Sugar's
Let's look at one
gone.
that's it's a little bit different because it's actually sold as a healthier alternative, which is fructose. So it's got that it had a bit of a sales label. This is healthier than sugar. Is it?
It's definitely not.
Who knew?
I'll cut straight to the chase. It is not healthier. So
Yes.
When we're talking about fructose, in this category, we're talking about high fructose corn syrup. Now, there's been lots and lots of information about that. It is really dreadful. We're also talking about fruit juice concentrate. So, when you get those really concentrated fruit juices, they were very, very popular about 5 years ago. You still find them in the supermarket shelves. But we're also talking about natural products, and we're talking about honey. So honey is often billed as a really healthy alternative. If you're looking at things like Manuka honey, Jarrah honey, they've got health benefits. They're antibacterial, they're antimicrobial. And you put them on a cut or a wound or a burn, we know that they help the healing. So you'll find a lot of information about honey being a really great product, but it's high in fructose. Agave syrup is another one. It's basically fructose. And molasses. So there we've got the three, the honey, the agave, and the molasses are all fructose, and fructose is definitely worse than sugar.
Yes.
So if
very
we're
sweet.
looking at in terms of categories, it's much worse than sugar. And the reason it's much worse than sugar is it goes straight to your liver. When it gets to the liver, it basically causes fatty liver disease. So we used to think about fatty liver disease as something that came from overconsumption of alcohol.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we now know that we've got the non-alcohol fatty liver disease, and fructose is one of the culprits. It will cause fatty liver disease. It also causes insulin resistance. So if you have a lot of fructose, you're likely to start to get insulin resistance, and that can lead to many of those metabolic conditions that we talk about. It leads to obesity, not just any obesity, it leads to that central, midline, the trunk obesity. And what we know is that's one of the worst types because it's fat around the essential organs, around the heart, around the liver, and it's really unhealthy types of fat. And it also causes an unhealthy lipid profile, so an unhealthy cholesterol profile. So it causes issues with triglycerides and all those sort of things. So it really is quite a nasty, even though it's natural, it is quite a nasty sweetener. And like you said, Mike, it's been billed as being really healthy.
Yes.
So, you hear it talked about as being natural, and as we said, honey is natural. But we've heard it talked about as being low GI, low glycemic index. And that means it doesn't raise your blood sugar in the same way that sugar does.
Yes.
So sugar spikes your blood sugar really quickly, whereas fructose, your blood sugar will go up, but it will take longer. So again, over the last probably 10 to 15 years, we've been told a lot about eating those lower GI, lower glycemic index foods. You know, and you've heard it, the sweet potatoes, not the potatoes, the honey, not the sugar. It doesn't make them any better for you. It just means that your blood sugar will rise over a longer period of time, and as I said, it causes all of these other issues like the fatty liver disease. So it really is quite bad for you. The high fructose corn syrup is a very cheap product to make, and you'll find in many of the cheap processed foods, in the sodas, you know, the sweetened sodas, so the full sugar sodas, they're often sweetened with high fructose corn syrup, and it's pretty addictive. So, and you find it in things like corn dogs, you find it in all of your prepared meats, all your processed meats, so your deli products, your prepared hams, you find it in your chorizos.
Which is sad.
Things.
I remember you mentioned this, it's sad that we now sweeten our meats to appease the palate that has become, you know, desiring sweet. So you used to be able to go and get some sausages and some chorizo and some ham that was natural and fairly clean. Now it's been sweetened with corn syrup to make it nice and sweet so the customer can enjoy it, and it just perpetuates that desire for sweet foods. It
really does. And you know, you just imagine the situation, you're in the supermarket, you've gone out, you're going to do a sharing board, you've got some friends coming around for dinner, so you're going to get some nice cheeses, you're going to get some nice meats. So you're going to get things like perhaps some nice ham, maybe some Parma ham, maybe you're going to cook up some chorizo, or one of the other prepared sausages, maybe a liverwurst, maybe some salami. So you're just going to make one of those really nice meat platters. And so you go to the supermarket, and this actually happened to me the other day. I went to the supermarket and I thought I really enjoy chorizo, I love that spicy flavour. I'll get some of that, I'll get some prosciutto, I'll get some Parma ham. Every single packet I picked up, without exception, everyone was sweetened with either dextrose or with high fructose corn syrup. So I couldn't find not one single prepared meat to make my sharing platter. Yeah. And that's, as you said, it's really sad because you're doing the right thing. You're making yourself a keto starter for everybody to share. And before you realise it, if you haven't checked every single ingredient, and that's a pain, it's a real pain to do. But if you don't check the ingredients, you might be consuming carbohydrates and fructose, so you know, sweeteners that you don't know about. And again, fructose, just like sugar, very, very high in calories because it's 100% carbohydrate.
Absolutely. So there is a need then to arm yourself with the knowledge and be, as you say, the food detective. The food detective, when you're in the supermarket, unfortunately these days the companies are so clever at hiding those artificial sweeteners. We do need to be a food detective. We do need to look at things we're going to buy, especially if we believe they're keto friendly, and actually go through the ingredients. All right, third category, one of my faves, is the low carb sweeteners. We get to meet the family of oles.
The sugar alcohols.
The oles family.
The oles.
The oles.
So we're talking here about that there are a category of sweeteners which basically are they're sugar alcohols. And so the sugar alcohol refers to the chemical that they're made from.
You don't drink them.
No, that's right. They're not the ethanol, so they're not your regular alcohol, but they end in the letters ol, just like alcohol does. So to give two examples, xylitol is one, maltitol is another. And so these came out a number of years ago in response to people realising that perhaps sugar and fructose weren't the way to go. And so there was quite a demand in the market, and we got a number of lower carb sweeteners that were developed. So let's take maltitol first. This is still quite close to sugar and fructose. It still has a lot of calories and it's still quite high in carbs. So it's technically not what I'd call low carb, but it's lower in carbs. Probably contains maybe 60% of the carbohydrates that sugar does.
Wow.
So it is a bit lower. Now, it is a fairly nasty sweetener. So if you ever see a food that's got maltitol in it, M-A-L-T, malt, I-T-O-L, maltitol, anything with maltitol, just avoid it. It really is a pretty bad sweetener. And the reason is, when it goes into your body, it will ferment. So think about products that ferment. Think about grapes ferment. Think about apples that ferment to make cider. Think about hops and things fermenting to make beer. When we ferment something, it basically produces gas, large quantities. Now, that maltitol will do exactly the same in your stomach. It will sit, it will ferment, and you will blow up in exactly the same way that we see
explode
when we make alcohol. So, and you may feel like you're exploding. So it really does, choking apart, it causes major gas. So you'll get major intestinal gas. You get all of that bloating, which is really uncomfortable. And it will cause probably diarrhea. And interestingly enough, it still causes your blood sugar to go up. So it is high in carbohydrates. Like I said, it's 60% of the carbs of sugar, and it will still cause a rise in your blood sugar. So maltitol is not a good alternative. It's not a good one to use. It's still on that, remove list.
All right, there is a category of the older style sweeteners.
There are, but before we get to that, we've got to do another one on the olds list, and that's the xylitol.
So you did mention xylitol.
That's it, xylitol. So there's another one which is xylitol, and you'll find this in chewing gum.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
it's actually good for you, isn't it? Good for you.
Well, it's
not
good
for
your
you.
teeth.
Good for your teeth.
Good
not
for your
good
teeth.
for your body. You just got to spit it out.
Remember those commercials? So they brought out, we all used to eat sweetened sugar, sweetened gum.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a big thing about sweetened gum, and that was causing cavities.
Yes.
And so a number of years ago, quite a long time ago now, they realised that this sugar alcohol, xylitol, which is low in carbohydrates, so it really doesn't have many carbohydrates, maybe 15% of sugar, so it's a lot lower. They found that xylitol actually prevents cavities.
Wow, okay.
So it was really adopted by the dental profession as, chew xylitol gum after you've eaten because it will prevent you getting cavities. So you've eaten some sugar, now chew the xylitol gum and it'll get rid of your cavities. And now you've got both. You've got the problems with the xylitol and you've had the sugar, so you've got obesity as well.
Winner.
So, very, very, very clever
absolutely,
marketing.
yeah.
But let's have a look at xylitol. So it is lower in calories, it is lower in carbs. It does help with cavities, so that is true. However, there's a big however.
Always a however.
The sugar alcohols are well known for causing these intestinal problems, and xylitol is the same. So in a lot of people, it causes, again, the gastrointestinal upset. You get the gas, you get the bloating, you get diarrhea. And think about this. So it's interesting, it's not absorbed in the body, but that's why a lot of people do get diarrhea. So these often act like laxatives.
Yes.
And think about this. This one in particular, xylitol, is toxic to dogs and other pets.
Yes.
Now, if your dog is going to be
poison.
poisoned by even a small bite of sugar-free gum that's sweetened with xylitol is enough to potentially kill a small animal. Do you really want to eat it? It's a toxic substance. It's not reported as being toxic in humans, but quite frankly, I don't want to eat something that's going to kill my dog.
No, there's nowhere to go with that, is there?
There's nowhere to go. You drop a piece on the floor, the dog eats it, and the dog dies. That's not nice.
It's not nice.
It's not nice.
So don't have it in the house. Have a xylitol-free house.
That's right. So xylitol, maltitol, I don't recommend. We don't recommend. Interesting, xylitol's made from wood, so it's made from birch wood. We're not really wood eaters.
No, traditionally, no.
It's not our natural diet, so it's not a natural product. It's toxic to dogs. It causes all those problems. It's low carb, and that's about it.
Yes.
Your maltitol, as we said, it's pretty nasty. It's higher in carbs. It causes all those intestinal problems. But maltitol especially is cheap to make. So again, like the high fructose corn syrup, these big food companies love it because they can produce it cheaply, they can put it in your products, they can still make their profits, and they don't really care that you're having all these intestinal problems. In fact, you may not realise that you're getting these problems from the sugar alcohols.
Yes, that's a problem. All right, so where I was going was the old school, the low calorie or the no calorie sweetness. There's a category there, the ones we've all heard about, and they're still around in different foods, but they're not particularly good for you, are they?
That's right. So there were a number of sweeteners that were basically introduced a long time ago. And they were, when they first came out, you got them in little packets at the diner.
Yes.
And they were marketed really cleverly because the little packets have actually got a very small quantity in, and they're allowed to be billed as 0 calorie, which is technically not true, but in those small packets, there's 0 calories
the quantity,
according to the FDA's regulations, right? Which is less than a certain number of carbs in those packets. So, they were billed as 0 calorie, and they are your sucralose, they're your aspartame, they're things like saccharin, a sulfamate-case, ACE-K. And these became very, very popular for a long time in sports drinks, sports products, the whey proteins, all of those in the health community that we used, or the fitness community that we used to excess. So bodybuilders will use them, athletes will use them. And because they were low calorie or 0 calorie, they were put into all of these drinks and billed as low carb or low calorie products. So we really were taken in by the marketing. The reason they're bad is because after a period of time, we started to realize there were some quite significant health impacts. So they're implicated in issues with pregnancy. There are issues with the fetus, so the unborn baby. We also know that there's potentially links to cancer. So really, I would avoid anything that's sweetened with the Splendors, anything that's called sucralose, that's got aspartame, saccharin, ACE-K in it. They're not a healthy type of sweetener. They're not going to help you in the long run, and potentially could lead you into some fairly significant health issues.
And we find them a lot in the diet drinks, don't we? That's one of the primary locations for these particular sweeteners.
That's right. So you may find that in your your diet sodas, all of those diet beverages, you've got those old style of sweeteners. And they're fairly cheap to produce.
Yes.
A lot of companies well established in this industry, and so you'll find that your sugar in your Coca-Cola may well have been replaced by a sucralose or an aspartame. And these are really a big issue because they're going to lead you right into that trap we talked about at the beginning. So remember, we said there were some tips and tricks when you listen through to the end. Not quite at the end, but this one is a big one. If you drink diet drinks because you've gone to the keto way of eating, so you've got sugar out of your diet, you've gone to those low calorie varieties, the Coke Zeros, all of those sort of things, what you find is that you may really struggle with cravings because they will lead to cravings big time. These are very, very addictive sweeteners. They will affect your hormones. So it's not well known that these type of old style sweeteners do affect your hormones. So you'll find you've got hormone fluctuations which don't happen on the keto way of eating. They'll also make you feel quite full a lot of the time. So you may not recognize when you are or are not hungry. So you're not allowing your body to tell you, to give you its natural signal when to eat and when not to eat. They can basically wipe out your gut microbiome. So in your gut, we know that we have all these bacteria. We've got good and bad bacteria. We need the good ones, we need the good guys. And when we've got onto the keto way of eating, we're developing all those good bacteria, and they're gonna help us feel amazing. They're gonna help us generate energy. Now, what those the old style artificial sweeteners will do is basically wipe out the good guys and allow all the bad bacteria to come in. And again, you'll start to get issues with bloating, with constipation, potentially with diarrhea, maybe with IBS symptoms. And again, you may not realize where they're coming from. Those diet drinks are also very acidic. So you put an acidic material, acidic chemical with those artificial sweeteners, and you've got disaster in your stomach. And there's all those long-term health effects that we've talked about.
So do they fit into the keto way of eating? Yes and no. Technically, they fit into the macros and they're okay to consume on a keto diet. However, all those health benefits and all the problems you're going to have in that attachment to sweet drinks and sweet treats is going to prevent you from getting the full benefits of keto. Now, you worked with someone who had some great results, didn't you?
So I've got to give a shout out to Oliver. Oliver, you know who you are. Awesome work. Now, Oliver was one of those people who had, the diet drinks in his life.
Loved them.
and heard something from ourselves around the artificial sweeteners.
Absolutely.
You know, just a snippet, one of those tiny bite-sized chunks of wellness wisdom.
He took it.
And Oliver took that and realised that his artificially sweetened diet sodas were not helping him.
Even though Oliver was following keto and doing all the right things, it was just this one little area that he didn't realise was underpinning all his good work.
And anybody out there doing lazy or dirty keto, you're probably having plenty of those diet sodas and diet drinks because you think they're okay. Oliver cut them out of his diet. Incredibly quickly, he started to lose weight, got to the smallest he'd ever been since he was 13. So can you imagine that? You know, smallest he'd been since he was basically, you know, a teenager. And started to feel really, really good. So it can have an overnight effect. Lose the diet drinks, lose those bad style of sweeteners, and you will start to feel better immediately. Most people start to feel their gut improve within literally days.
And that was someone, and it could be like you, who was doing keto and had done keto, really wasn't getting the results he deserved, changed one small aspect, and this is all around artificial sweeteners, and is reaping the rewards and loving it. All of a sudden his whole view of keto has changed completely because he's getting the results he actually deserves.
Exactly right.
All right, last category is the keto sweeteners. These are the ones that we can use in keto and maybe you would recommend for those people transitioning.
I'm going to recommend 2 out of the 3.
Okay, go.
So this category is advertised as keto-friendly sweeteners. So we've gone through all the ones that you really don't want to be having. Even though they're 0 calorie, many of them have got those health impacts, so you don't want them. But if you are going to go for a keto-friendly sweetener, or you're going to go for a sweet food, then look at this category. Now these are the ones that are 0 calorie, 0 carbohydrates. They're typically not affecting the body or the blood sugar, and that's why we get them listed as keto friendly. Now all of the snack food and the food companies have jumped on this keto friendly bandwagon, and you'll find many foods out there saying yes, these are keto friendly because they've got the keto sweeteners in them. Now there are 3. I'm going to go through each one in turn so you hear the pros and cons of each one. The first one is erythritol. Second one is stevia, and the third one is monk fruit. All right, so erythritol, stevia, and monk fruit.
It's a toll, isn't it? It's an ole.
Ah, you've got it. You
It's one of the ole family.
spotted it, Mike.
Doesn't sound very healthy, PS.
That's it. So we went through those sugar alcohols a few minutes ago, and I left this one to last. And why did I do that? I did
mystery.
it. It's a mystery. I do these things.
Yes.
They're mysterious.
Most of the things you do are a mystery.
Indeed. The reason I left this one till last is because it is billed as a keto sweetener. So xylitol and maltitol are not, because they've got carbohydrates in them. Erythritol has no calories and no carbohydrates. So even though it's a sugar alcohol, it's gone into the category of keto-friendly sweeteners.
But it still has all the nasty properties and causes the bloating and the guts and the diarrhea and the explosions and the disaster pants, all those things.
It does.
But it slips into keto-friendly because of the 0 carbs.
So let's go through. What are its benefits? So it is 0 calorie, it is 0 carbohydrate, so it does fit into your macros. It's not going to derail you for the macros. It is produced from corn, so I have some concerns about foods that are produced from corn, but we're not going to go into that today. It doesn't raise your blood sugar, so that's actually a benefit. So it's better than a lot of the other products because it doesn't raise blood sugar. And you know, it isn't absorbed in the body. So when you take in erythritol, you're not getting it absorbed. So it's not going to cause some of those issues that we've heard about before. It is going through and it's being peed out. The bad, you're exactly right, Mike. It causes all of those nasty tummy issues, the IBS, the gas, the bloating, the diarrhea. So it isn't as bad as some of the other sugar alcohols. So if you're going to use erythritol, and it is popular, it's in a lot of processed foods, but be cautious. Could it be causing you gut issues? If you're experiencing them, have a look.
Right, but there's more.
There are more, so there is another category, and these are the ones that are more natural in the sense that they are very directly from plants or fruits. And these include things like stevia, monk fruit, so lo hang guo, and you know they're they're typically billed as zero calories, zero carbs, great for baking. So these don't always have a particularly nice taste. So stevia and monk fruit are actually quite bitter in their taste.
Well, when
so,
you use them in baking, they come quite sweet.
No, they're still very bitter.
Okay.
So you've got to be quite careful how you use them, because if you overdo it, A, they're very, very sweet, and B, they'll add a bitterness. So they just don't taste the same as sugar.
Okay.
So they've been used historically in a lot of health foods that are billed as the low sugar alternatives,
Yes.
but they don't have the same taste as sugar. So
Right.
they may be better options. So the erythritol and the xylitol, probably I would say steer clear of those because they're not great.
Yes.
Stevia and monk fruit I think are worth looking at. So if you really do want to make something, you're going to do some baking, you want to make one of the kids a birthday cake, and you don't want them to feel ostracised at school, so you want something to put in your baking.
Absolutely.
Be careful with quantities, figure out how much to use, but they could be a good alternative. Monk fruit's very similar to stevia. It comes from a fruit rather than a leaf, and it comes from Thailand and China. And it's been used historically. So it's called monk fruit because the monks used to use it. Yep. So hence its name. It's Lo Han Guo is its full name, its original name. And again, it's got no calories, no carbohydrates, doesn't upset your stomach. It's a pretty good one. So if you can find it, it's a lot more expensive than stevia. So if you take the two, it will be much more expensive than stevia. And just watch out, guys, it is a great sweetener. I like Lo Han Guo or monk fruit. I think it's a good one. It doesn't taste like sugar, it's very sweet, but often it gets mixed with inexpensive sweeteners or even some of those bad sweeteners. So watch out, if you're going to use it, make sure you get the pure variety, and then it does have a place and can be used.
Wow. So a wealth of information there. So essentially we started today with understanding why people still crave the sweet, and understanding why long term, ideally, we want to get away from that desire to include sweet in any form in the keto lifestyle, because we just don't need it and our taste buds will not want it. We need to make that cut. But for those people transitioning, there are a bunch of sweeteners that we can choose from. Lots of them are toxic to the body in some way, shape or form. There's a couple that you've mentioned that are probably good in that transition piece, used wisely. But I think long term we're all looking to move away from having those artificial sweeteners or sweeteners of any type into keto.